Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Dave, and I am one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker. And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know there are so many other things you could be doing at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. So we really appreciate you spending some time this week to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker and how it can benefit your homeschool. It's really our mission here at Homeschool Tracker to not only create tools that allow you to be more successful in your homeschool, but to also offer you the training and the support to use those tools successfully. And that's what webinars like this are all about, really the support and the training so that you can use Homeschool Tracker to be more successful in your homeschool. So just a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this, and so I will send you, sorry, Caroline's sending me a message. You can't find your login and password. Caroline, if you go to, sorry, we'll just, I want to make sure Caroline can follow along here. So if you just go to Homeschool, oops, let me log out here. If you go to the login screen, and if you forgot your username, you can click on this link right here, put in your email address, and it'll send you your username. And if you also forgot your password, then once you get your username, you can go to Forgot Password, put your username in there, and it'll send you a reminder. We don't have access directly to the usernames necessarily. I can look it up. It's a bit of a process. But for your password, we definitely don't have access to that. So if you did forget your password, you'll need to go through the process to retrieve it. So hopefully that's helpful. But fear not, as I was saying, we are recording this. And so we will send a recording of this to you so that you have it for your reference in the future. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in and start with a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. So the first thing that we will discuss is where to find help. So if you've been using Homeschool Tracker, you probably have noticed that it's a very deep program, very feature-rich, and so there are a lot of features in there, and so I want to show you how to find help on all of those. We'll spend some time going over the interface of Homeschool Tracker, the ins and outs of all those different screens. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between subjects and courses and why they're important in your homeschool. And then we'll talk about assignments, which are really the heart of all of your record keeping in Homeschool Tracker. Then we'll dig into lesson plans, which are a really popular feature that can save you lots of time. Then we'll talk about reports and specifically the daily task list. And we'll also go over workflows. And what I mean by workflows is really just how you use Homeschool Tracker on a day-to-day basis, what you do each and every day to allow it to work best for you. And then we'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So I'm more than happy to stay on as long as we need to make sure all of your questions are answered. So let's first start with where to find help. I think probably the best place to find help is right here on webinars like this. We do these pretty much every other week, and it's just a live open forum. And if you jump on here at any one of those sessions, we're happy to answer any of all of your questions. To find those, you can always go to homeschooltracker.com and then click on this, or go to the support tab and then click on Training Center. And this is where you'll find all the scheduled webinars, as well as all of the recordings of previous webinars are all here as well. The next place I would recommend is our Getting Started tutorial videos. So from our help site, which is just help.homeschooltracker.com, right here at the top, these are our Getting Started tutorial videos. There are 11 parts, and each one is only a few minutes long, so altogether take you about 30 minutes to watch them. And really, we dive right into very specific areas of the program. So if you needed a quick reference on anything in particular, you could certainly watch one of those. The next place is really just our help site. So help.homeschooltracker.com. This is basically a giant reference guide for Homeschool Tracker. And so one of the tricks I like to show folks is how you can jump straight to the part of the help site that's most relevant to you. So anywhere within Homeschool Tracker, let me just log back in here. I'll just go to the calendar view here, but on any screen in Homeschool Tracker, if you click on this help link here in the top right, that'll take you to the corresponding help page for that screen that you're on. So this is the help page for the agenda calendar view, and it has anything and everything you'd ever want to know about that screen, along with links to the relevant areas that it discusses. So it's a really comprehensive guide. The other way that I recommend using the help guide is just using the search box up here. So let's say I wanted to search for how to put days off in the program. I could just search for that and then jump straight to the help page on entering in days off within Homeschool Tracker. So again, really a great resource using this help site if you are ever stuck. Okay, and then the last place, and last but not least, is our email support. You can email us anytime at support@homeschooltracker.com, and we monitor that email box all day long and typically respond to each and every email within 1 to 2 business days, likely faster than that. And my wife, Amy, as well as our support person, Sherry, they monitor that support box and are eager to answer all of your questions, whether they be specific to how to use something within Homeschool Tracker, or they could be as broad as strategies for how to set things up or how it might work best in your homeschool. Okay, so let's take a little bit of time and jump into the interface of Homeschool Tracker and go over basically the main menu and how it's all organized. I'm just going to close these tabs here. And we will jump back to Homeschool Tracker here. So when you log into Homeschool Tracker for the first time, you'll likely see this big menu here. You can always open and close it using that arrow at the top. And the menu is broken up into 5 different areas. So the top left here is the schedules and planning section of the menu. This is where you'll find the agenda, both in calendar view and in list view. And we'll go over that in a little bit here. You'll also find your lesson plans here, as well as the shared lesson plan library. And we'll talk about each one of these screens in more detail later. Below that is the students section of the menu. This is where things like the students list is, where you can set the grade levels for your students, the grading overview, which has each and every grade that your student has achieved over a given period of time, the lesson plans and presets page, which we'll talk about later. This is where you can also enter in skills progress, as well as a transcript supplemental, which is basically anything you might want to add to your transcript, like honors, awards, that sort of thing. The center section of the menu are all reports, and these reports can be generated as PDF files, which you can then save, print, or email off. And you've got your attendance report, course list, your report card, transcripts are all right here. Next, in the top right is the Manage Lists section of the menu. And this is really what I call more of a maintenance area of the program. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be in and out of these screens necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but it's good to know what they are and what they do. So basically, each one of these is a different list of items. So you have all of your activities, you have all of your chores, all of your courses, all of your library items, all of your subjects, etc. And they're important and they're more maintenance because that's where you would go to add, edit, or delete an item on that list. And really it's your assignments and your lesson plan items that are going to refer to those lists as you create them. So definitely good to know where those are as you need to create new items or edit items in there. And then finally, the bottom right section of the menu is the Your Account section. This is where you'll find the program options, your school profile, as well as the subscription and users page, which is where you can add additional user accounts or modify your subscription settings. So that's really a quick overview of the menu and all of the different areas of it. Let's now jump into subjects and courses. So subjects and courses in Homeschool Tracker are really important to understand the difference between them, because as you're setting up your Homeschool Tracker account, you'll want to understand what's a subject and what's a course, because as you're creating these, it'll really help determine how you're kind of organizing things within your Homeschool Tracker account. So subjects are really those broad areas of study. So things like math, language arts, history, or science. Again, really broad. And by default, your Homeschool Tracker account comes with those 4 basic subjects: math, language arts, history, and science. You can obviously add more if you like. Now, courses are the specific courses or classes, if you will, areas of study in your homeschool. Things like Algebra 2, which would then fall underneath the subject of math, or Composition 1, which would fall under the subject of language arts, or Physical Science 1, which would fall under the subject of science. So again, the course is a much more specific name, and then the subject is really that broad kind of container. So let's take a look at what this looks like within Homeschool Tracker so you can see. So here I am back in my Homeschool Tracker account. And let's jump over to the subjects screen under the Manage List section of the menu. And so like I mentioned before, your account will come with 4 kind of primary subjects already created. You can obviously change these, delete them, or add more. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot of information here. Really, you just have the name, the status, how many courses it contains, and whether or not it's active. If I wanted to edit one of these, I would just double click on it, and I could change these settings if I'd like, or change the name of it. If I wanted to add a new subject, I could just go to Action and then choose Add, and then enter in my new subject name. But again, subjects are really these broad containers, really, of courses, which would go underneath them. So let's take a look at courses. If I go to the courses list, immediately you'll see that I have a lot more courses, and there's a lot more information on here, more details, settings, different things I can change about each specific course. So let's take a look at this one, Ancient History 1. So right off the bat, you can see it's called Ancient History 1, and it's part of the subject history. Then it has all these different settings, if it's worth credit units or not, what grading scale it's using, whether or not it's using weighted grading. I'm actually going to turn this off for right now. And a bunch of other notes in different settings. So again, much more specific. And like I said, your account would come with 4 broad subjects by default. Most Homeschool Tracker accounts probably have anywhere between, say, 4 and 10 subjects. If you have anything more than that, then you might want to rethink kind of how you're organizing things within your account, because you could have literally hundreds of courses. Because if you imagine, your students going through high school, for example, they might have 6, 7, 8 subjects, but they would have, 10 courses per semester over the course of 4 years, and that can really add up. So again, courses are the much more specific area of study, and then the subjects are kind of the broad container of those courses. So while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and add a course. I'll just choose Action and Add. I'm going to call this one Reading 1. And the subject for Reading 1 would be Language Arts. Whoops. And I'm going to stop right there because, as you'll notice, as I started typing Language Arts, it popped up right here. That's because this field is called a Smart Entry field, and you'll see them throughout the program. But what they do is basically, as you're typing, it searches the corresponding list, in this case, the subject list, for anything that matches what I'm typing. And it'll pull it right up so that I don't have to finish typing and I can just select the right thing. If I don't know the name of the subject that I want, I can just enter in a blank space and it'll pull up the whole list and I can choose that way. Okay, so this is Reading 1. It's part of the Language Arts subject. I'm going to keep everything else here the same, or kind of the default. If you have questions about these specific options, certainly email us or check out the help guide, and it drills down into what each one of these will do. So I'll go ahead and save it and then refresh. And now you can see I have a new course called Reading 1, part of the Language Arts subject. And there you go. It's all set. So that's how you would create a course, and that's really the difference between subjects and courses within Homeschool Tracker. Now, a few things to watch out for. I would recommend not using the exact same name for both a subject and a course. So, for example, if you have a subject called Language Arts, I wouldn't also have a course called Language Arts, because that would be confusing, right? And because the course itself is not more specific than the subject. So again, if you have the subject Language Arts, then your course should be much more specific, like Reading 1 or Reading 2 or Freshman English composition or something like that. It needs to be much more specific. And if they're the exact same name, like Language Arts and Language Arts, then it'll be confusing when you're selecting your subject or selecting your course, because you won't know if you're looking at the subject or the course. Now, that being said, within the program, we show the difference between subject and course by using a slash. And I'll show you what that looks like. So let me just jump over to the agenda real quick. And I'm going to create a new assignment. And, when you're creating an assignment, and you'll see this, and we'll go over this a little bit later, we refer to subject course. A lot of times it's just one thing, because like the course that we just created, Reading 1, we want to always know that it's part of the Language Arts subject. Just it's good for us to have that context. So when we're referring to it, like within an assignment, for example, we often see this subject/course. And when I go ahead and pull up this list, you'll see here's history by itself. That's just a subject. And then you'll see history / ancient history 1. So this is the course, ancient history 1, which is within the subject of history. So it always gives you that context, like, oh, okay, I'm picking the ancient history course, which is part of the history subject. Now, if you don't see that /, then you're just picking the subject, history, which you certainly could do, but most of the time you want your assignments to be part of a specific course. So I can see here's language arts, just the subject, but if I wanted language arts / reading 1, then I would select this one. So that's what that / represents. It just represents the difference, or excuse me, the break between the subject name and the course name. Okay, so let's jump in now to assignments, since we're kind of talking about those already. Assignments are really the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. So they're really anything that we literally assign to our students. So that could be homework, it could be a lesson, it could be a test, it could be a quiz, it could be a lab, it could be a field trip even. Anything that you want them to complete and that you want to track over time. So by track over time, I mean that you want to mark it complete. You want to say, okay, that's done. Or that you want to give it a grade or some kind of other completion. It's not just like a chore necessarily. It's really something that needs to be tracked over time. And this is why it's so important within Homeschool Tracker, because these assignments, these are really kind of the heart of all of the record keeping. And so this little diagram here, again, shows you that assignments are the heart of all record keeping. And they come from a couple different places. So you can create assignments individually, or you can create a series of them. Or they can come from lesson plans, and then you can schedule them to create assignments. And we'll show you how to do that. Now, the thing about assignments is with all the data that's inside of that assignment, it can generate all these different reports. So you can generate report cards and transcripts. If you have auto attendance enabled, it can generate attendance records for you. You can create the daily task list, which is the list of all of the things that you or your student need to complete. And all of those other additional reports that we saw all kind of come from assignments and all of the data that's within an assignment. So what does an assignment look like? And we just saw this briefly, but an assignment requires a student, a subject course, and a date. And then there's obviously a bunch of optional fields. And the more optional fields you utilize, the more data that you put into it, then the more you can get out of it over time. The more different kinds of reports you can generate, or the more information you can provide your student if they're looking at these assignments as kind of their task list. So you have the student that you can choose, the subject course, the activity, which again could be like a lesson or a quiz or a test, the resource, which is like an item in your library, like a book or CD or DVD or something like that. PLC, which stands for page, lesson, chapter. So it could be like pages 25 through 36 is a good use of that field. We have a full text editing directions field where you can add kind of free text in there. The date that the assignment is assigned, the time if you're utilizing times, the points possible and the points earned if you're going to grade the assignment, the time spent on the assignment, whether or not it can be rescheduled, and then the completion boxes, either completed by teacher or completed by student or by both. And now when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, a number of things can happen. So attendance can be recorded if you're using auto attendance. The grades can be generated if you're grading. Time spent can be calculated if you're using start and end times. And from all of that data, all that information, all of these reports can be generated. So let's do a quick demo on assignments. So what we'll do is we'll create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them and we'll mark them complete. And we'll do that both from the calendar view as well as the list view. So I'm going to jump back over here. And first I'm going to go to the calendar view. So again, the top left is the schedules and planning section of the menu. And we have the agenda, which is really the list of all the things that you or your student need to do in a given day. And we have that both in calendar view and list view. We'll go over both of those, but let's start in the calendar view because that's probably the most kind of familiar view. And again, it looks just like a calendar. And here we are, Wednesday, August 17th. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a single assignment. So I'm just going to go up to add and then choose assignment single. And I'm going to choose a student. I'm going to choose my daughter, Campbell. And then I'm going to choose a subject course. And so again, this is a smart entry field. So I'm just going to hit the space bar and I'll choose Ancient History 1. And then an activity, I'm going to call this a lesson. And then a resource, let's see. So I'm just going to hit the space bar, and this pulls up a list of all of the resources in my library. I'm just going to pick one of these, and we will call this lesson 1. And we will assign it to today from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you don't want to use start and end times, it's totally fine. It'll just end up in the all day section of the calendar, which just means your student can do it at any point they like to. And then for points possible, I'm going to say that this is worth 10 points. And that's it. So I'm going to click save. And there we go. We have an assignment now for today from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for Campbell, Ancient History 1, Lesson 1. And so now let's say the day kind of came and went, and we want to go in at the end of the day and grade this assignment and mark it complete. Well, all I have to do is double click on it. When you double click on it, you get like a little preview of it where you could do a few basic functions. But if you want to dig back into it, you can always click on more and get back to the edit screen here. So let's say it's the end of the day and I'm going to give her a grade. She got 9 out of 10. And I'm going to go ahead and mark it complete by checking that box. So when I marked it complete, you'll notice that this grade was calculated here. And if I go ahead and click save, then there you go. A few things happen. So first off, this got a little bit darker in color, just so that visually I could see that it was marked complete. And then the other thing that happened is this Campbell present showed up here. And this is an attendance record. And it showed up because I have automatic attendance enabled. And what that does is it basically says that whenever a assignment was marked complete on a given day, it's going to assume then that the student was present that day, and it'll just create an attendance record. And that's handy if you need to have attendance records, so you know how many days obviously your student was in school, and it's nice that it can just kind of create that on the fly versus you having to create it manually. So that's automatic attendance. So there you have it. I just created an assignment, I graded it, and I marked it complete. And when we think about workflows and kind of how people use Homeschool Tracker, a lot of folks do just this. They create single assignments, they'll mark them complete and grade them, and then be on their way. And you could do this, say, every morning, kind of create all your assignments for the day or the night before, for example. And then at the end of the day, go in and mark them complete and grade them and move on to the next day. The other thing that this works really well for are folks that are more unschoolers, right? That don't necessarily have their day planned out ahead of time. And what you can do then is at the end of the day, kind of like we are now, it's 8:30 at night here, we can go in and kind of reflect on our day and determine what it was that we accomplished, and then just create the assignments kind of retrospectively so that we have a log then of everything that we did that day. And that's really a cool way to use Homeschool Tracker as solely a record keeping tool and less of a planning tool. And that's totally fine. And I think that's also kind of one of the great benefits of Homeschool Tracker is that it can be used in so many different ways for so many different types of homeschoolers. The planner type can go in here and create all their assignments ahead of time. And then the one that doesn't necessarily want to do that can go in after the fact and enter in the work that their student did complete. And then at the end of the day, or at the end of the school year, for example, all the data is still the same, and you can still generate all those report cards and transcripts as long as you're kind of keeping up with it along the way. So that's just a kind of a quick workflow that a lot of folks do, where you could certainly just create single assignments and be on your way. Now, what I also want to show you is how to create more than one assignment at a time. So I'm going to go up to Add and then choose Assignment Multiple. And now what you get when you do that is this kind of Add Multiple Assignments wizard. So it's a wizard because it kind of walks you through these different stages here. But let's start here under Students and Details. First off, you can choose if you want this to apply to more than one student, which is nice. I'm going to just keep this for Campbell. And I'm going to choose a subject course. So let's go ahead and do Ancient History 1. And these will be lessons again. And I'll just pick a resource. And again, I'm going to have these start at 9 and go to 10, and they're each going to be worth 10 points. Okay, now I'm going to continue to day and date. Now I want these to happen every day, and I'll have them start on, actually, I'm going to have them start, let's see, let's do this for next week. So I'll have them start on Monday, the 22nd. And then I can choose continue creating items until PLC pattern is exhausted, or I can continue creating items until a specific end date. I'm going to choose this first option because I want to show you what this does. So I'm going to continue to PLC. Now, if you remember, PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. So the thing about page, lesson, chapter is that more than likely, the PLC for a series of assignments is never going to be the same for each one, right? So you can imagine the first assignment might be lesson 1, the second assignment might be lesson 2, and then so on. And so we have the ability within Homeschool Tracker to automatically increment the PLC when you're creating more than one assignment at a time. And so we can do that as a 1-part increment, 2 parts, or 3 parts. I'm going to start with a 1-part increment so you can get the idea of how it works. So first off, I can choose the leading text, which is basically the word or words that I want to be at the beginning of the PLC. So I'm going to call this lesson, and then I can have a number. So start with 1 and we'll end with 5, and we'll increment by 1s. So when you think about how this is kind of setting it up, it's basically saying that I want to start with lesson 1 and I want to end with lesson 5, and I want to increment by 1. So it should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to preview, and the preview is just that. It's just a preview of what we're about to create. And so you can see I have 5 lessons here, starting on Monday and ending on Friday, and it increments. It goes lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I wanted to change anything in here, I would just click back on these tabs at the top to go back to one of those steps. Or if I'm all set with everything, I can select the items that I want to keep, or select all of them in this case, and then choose Accept Selected Items. Okay. So now I'm back on the calendar, and if you remember, I created these for next week, so I'm just going to skip to next week. And there you go. I have my 5 ancient history assignments, and they go lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5. So you can see how pretty quickly I was able to generate 5 lessons, or 5 assignments, I should say, that automatically increment from lesson 1 to lesson 5, and I scheduled them for next week, Monday through Friday. And so again, when we think about workflow, a lot of folks do just this, where, for example, on Sunday night, maybe they create all of the scheduled assignments for the week and then go about their week, and as they go, kind of grade things and mark them complete along the way. Okay, so before I jump over to the list view, I just want to kind of do a quick overview of this screen, the calendar view, so you can get a sense of what all these different buttons here do. So at the top, we saw the Add button, which allows you to add different types of items. You also have these blue tabs here at the top, and these are filters for the calendar. They basically just filter what it is you're viewing. So for example, you can filter based off student. If you just want to see one student's items, you can filter off the type of items, off the completion status, or if you wanted to just view certain subjects, you could do that as well. So for example, let me just go back to to this week, and I could change types, and I could uncheck attendance. And now I don't see that attendance record anymore. Obviously, the attendance record is still there. It's still in the system. I just turned off the ability to see it. And that, comes in handy, especially as your agenda really fills up here. And if you want to just filter out and only view specific things, it certainly can help. Now, the other feature below that is the Export to PDF button. If I click on that, it will generate a PDF file. Here it is, that I can print out, I can email, I could do whatever I like with. And it generates that PDF of whatever it is we're viewing here in the calendar at the time. Below that are the navigation buttons. You can jump straight to today. You can move forward and backward in time. Over here are the different view options. So I can view just one day at a time, like this. I can view the whole week, including Sunday and Saturday. I can view just the work week. I can view the whole month. I can also view this in agenda view, which is basically like this list format. Or I can view in a timeline format, which is kind of left to right. Below that, at the very bottom here, I can choose the option to show full day, like this, where I can see basically midnight to midnight. Or I can show just the school hours, and the school hours are set up in your program options. In my case, I have it set to 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, so that's really the calendar view kind of in a nutshell. Let's jump over to the list view so you can see what that looks like. Now, the list view is all of the same information. It's the same assignments, the same attendance records, but it's presented in a list format. And the advantage of that list format, it means that you can see all of this information kind of at a glance. It also means that you can see, let me just move to next week. You can see a lot of information all at a glance, for multiple items. Here on the left column here in the green section, these are those filters. Just like we had on the calendar view, you can view specific time periods, you can choose what students you like to view, that sort of thing. And then here in the middle, this is really where all the data is, and the list, if you will. And one of the nice things here is you can sort by any one of these columns. So if I wanted to sort by date descending, I could do that. The other thing you can do here is you can group by column. So if I wanted to group by type, for example, I could just drag that up there, and all of my assignments now are together. If you have more than one student, for example, you could group by student, and then all of your students' items would be kind of grouped in one little section here, which is nice. But the real benefit of the list view is the ability to edit multiple items at a time. So let's say, for example, I want to edit these 5 assignments. I can select them all and then choose Action, Multi-Edit, and I can edit these all at once. So for example, let's go ahead and grade them all. Let's say she got 8 out of 10 on all of these. And I'm going to mark them complete here at the same time, and then click Save. And there we go. I just graded all 5 of those assignments, and you'll notice that they each have a grade of 80% now. And it also generated attendance records for each one of those because I still have auto attendance enabled. So you can see how pretty quickly, at least on the list view, you can affect multiple items at a time. You can see things and kind of get a glance of where everything is. So lots of power here in the list view. And this, in conjunction with the calendar view, the two certainly can work together. Okay, great. So I see some questions coming in. We are going to wait until the end to answer all your questions, just so that we can make sure that we get through all of the slides and all of the different areas that we want to cover. And that way, if folks don't have questions, they can jump off at the end. But certainly we will get to all of your questions. So thank you for submitting those. Feel free to keep sending them in, and we'll certainly get to all of them at the end. Okay, so now let's jump into lesson plans. So lesson plans are a really popular feature within Homeschool Tracker. But I want to stress that it's totally optional to use them, right? I personally think that kind of getting familiar with the agenda and adding assignments is a great way to get started using Homeschool Tracker. And as you kind of get used to how it's working and how it's working in your homeschool, that you can certainly add in lesson plans and start using them as well, because you'll fully realize their benefit in terms of their time-saving abilities after you already kind of get the hang of using Homeschool Tracker. But let's talk a little bit about what lesson plans are and how you might use them. So lesson plans are really a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So they look a whole lot like an assignment, except they're not on the agenda yet. They basically exist in this lesson plan area. They're almost like an assignment template that once you schedule them, then they become assignments. Now, this is perfect if you want to plan everything out in detail all at once, or if you have a predefined curriculum. So if you are using kind of off-the-shelf curriculum, for example, a lot of times they might have lesson plans included in them. Or if you want to take the time now, perhaps before your school year starts, and create lesson plans for each one of your courses or your students, you can certainly do that within Homeschool Tracker. Now, the nice thing about lesson plans is that they're not tied to a particular student, which means they can be reused over and over again throughout your homeschooling career. That also means that you can create basically a lesson plan once, and it can kind of live on forever. So for example, if you created a lesson plan for freshman biology for your oldest student, and they used it, when your younger students get to that course, you can just pull up that same lesson plan and use it again, and not have to re-enter all of that information. The other nice thing is that these can be shared and imported using the shared lesson plan library. So our shared lesson plan library currently has, I believe, over 1,000 lesson plans in it that were all contributed by other Homeschool Tracker users. And the majority of them are based off of off-the-shelf curriculum. This is also great if you're part of a co-op or a group. You could have one member of your group create a lesson plan and then share it with all the other members of your group. So really powerful. But let's jump into a bit of a demo so we can see what they are and how they work. So what we'll do is we'll see an example lesson plan, then we'll create a simple plan, we'll import one from the lesson plan library, and then we'll schedule the lesson plan and discuss how to use presets with them. So let's jump back over here, and I'm going to go to the lesson plan screen on the schedules and planning section of the menu. And if it's your first time here, you'll see this little pop-up which basically explains kind of what we just talked about. And again, if it's also your first time here, you probably don't have any lesson plans in it currently. But I do, so I'm going to pull up one of them here, the Abeka Arithmetic First Grade Plan. And first, like right off the bat, you'll probably notice that this screen looks a whole lot like the agenda list view. We use a lot of this same kind of paradigm throughout the program. Again, on the left, these are all your filters. And in the middle here is kind of the data, the list of items. And all the same sorting and grouping features work within this screen as they did on the list view. But let's take a look at the lesson plan. So like I mentioned, lesson plans are basically a series of items. These are the items in this case that are not yet assignments. So this is a lesson plan item. If I open it up, you'll notice that it looks a whole lot like an assignment, except it's missing a few things. It doesn't have a student, and it doesn't have a date. Instead, it just has a day number, and it has all the rest of the information. Now, because lesson plans and lesson plan items are not assignments yet, they can't have a date, so we just have that day number. And what that means is that on day 1 of using this lesson plan, this is what you're going to do. On day 2, this is what you're going to do. On day 3, this is what you're going to do. So let's take a look at how they have this organized. Day 1, they're doing lesson 1, day 2, lesson 2, etc. When you get down to day 11, there's an oral test. Day 12, there's an oral test, and that's worth 100 points. Looks like there's also another test, and that's also worth 100 points. Then they get back into the lessons, and that goes for a few days, and then on day 17, another series of tests, and so on. And now if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that this goes for 171 days and 171 lessons. There's 202 total items in this lesson plan. So really, this is a full year's worth of arithmetic already planned out, already kind of sequenced out for us that we could start using in our homeschool. And so that's really what a lesson plan is and what it looks like. Now let's go ahead and create a lesson plan of our own. What I'll do is I'll just click on Add, and then I'll choose Add Multiple. And so we're going to create multiple lesson plan items right off the bat. And again, this looks a whole lot like the Add Multiple Assignments wizard because, again, lesson plan items and regular assignments are very similar in all of the data that you put into them. So I'm going to create some lesson plan items. First off, I need to choose which lesson plan this should be a part of. I don't want to add it to the existing arithmetic one. Instead, I'm going to create a new one. I'll just call this Sample Plan. And this will be for Ancient History 1. And we'll call these lessons, and we'll pick a resource. And then we will say that these are each worth 10 points. And we'll continue to day numbers. So we'll start on day 1, and we'll increment by 1. And then we'll go to PLC. And again, we'll do a 1-part auto increment here. We'll start with lesson 1 and end with lesson 10 and increment by 1. So let's go ahead and continue to preview. And so again, here's just a preview of what we're about to create. There's 10 days, and it goes from lesson 1 to 10. So I'll select these, and then I'll choose Accept. Okay, so now here I am back on the lesson plan screen. I'm going to pull up that sample plan. And here it is. Now, let's say I wanted to add a test to this at the end. Let's go ahead and choose Add Single. And we'll choose Ancient History 1, and this will be a test. And let's say that this is for day 11, and it's worth 100 points. And then we'll save that. And so there you go. I have a 11-day lesson plan. The first 10 days are lessons 1 through 10, and then day 11 is our test. And so I could, continue doing this for 180 days if I like, and create an entire curriculum of Ancient History 1 kind of ready to go when I want to use it. There's also, we did a webinar just on lesson plans a few months ago. You can get that on the Training Center page on our website. And I highly recommend watching that if you're really into lesson plans, because we talk about a lot of different strategies for creating lesson plans and how you can do it really quickly and kind of figure things out ahead of time so that you can either, for example, if you bought an off-the-shelf curriculum that came with a lesson plan, how to translate that into Homeschool Tracker, or how to just create one right off the bat. But this gives you an idea of pretty briefly how I can create a simple lesson plan and have it ready for use. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and import one from the shared lesson plan library. So I'm going to go to shared lesson plans. And if I want to just view all of them, I'll just enter in a blank search here and click go. And you can see these are all of the lesson plans that are currently in the library. And you can just kind of glance and see that most of them are based off-the-shelf curriculum. And again, these are all uploaded by members just like you. And so that means they might not be 100% perfect or exactly what you're looking for, but they are oftentimes a great start. For example, if you're using this curriculum, you can certainly pull it in and kind of modify it for your own purposes and make it work for you. But I'm going to go ahead and search in here. I'm just going to search for reading. And I will pull up this Usborne First Reading Level 1 plan. And so this plan is, somebody took the time here to create this plan. It looks like it's 15 days, and it has all these different lesson plan items on it. And I want to go ahead and import this. So I'm going to choose Prepare for Import. And I first have to give this a name. So I'm going to give it a name of Reading 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and select all these items and just kind of look at it. And before I import these, I did notice that the subject course is Language Arts. So it's really just the subject, Language Arts, remember, because there's no slash and there's no course name. I want these to be part of my new Reading 1 course that we created earlier. So I could just import these and then change it later, but I might as well just do it now. So with them selected, I'm going to choose Action, Multi-Edit, and I'm going to change the course to Language Arts / Reading 1. So it's subject Language Arts, course Reading 1. And I'll click Save. And there we go, that was altered. And then if you look here, it says there's all these items that have an asterisk next to them and they say new. That just means that those items don't exist in my account currently. And it's going to create those when it imports it, which is great because these are all library resources that I don't have in there. And so it's going to create those for me. So we're all set. So with all these selected, I'm going to choose Accept Selected Items. And there we go. Now I have the lesson plan Reading 1. And here it is. All 15 of those items are in my account, ready to go. So when we're ready to go, like when we're ready to actually use these, how do you go about scheduling these or turning these lesson plan items into assignments? It's pretty straightforward. If I go ahead and just select the items that I want to schedule, I'm just going to choose the first 5. And I am very intentional about that because I would recommend, there's this tendency to want to go ahead and select all of the items and then schedule your whole year in advance. I like to just schedule 1 week or maybe 2 weeks at a time. That way I can remain flexible. I can speed up, I can slow down, I can reschedule things really easily. It just makes it a little bit more manageable. So I'm just going to select the first 5 days of this lesson plan, and I'm going to choose Action, Scheduler. Now I can choose which students I want to schedule this for. I'm going to choose Campbell. I'm going to continue to day and date. And I want this to happen, let's just have it happen every day. And I'm going to start it next week, the 22nd. And I want to schedule these all for 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And I will continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. And I know that I selected 5 of them, so it should fill out the whole week of next week. So I'll go ahead and continue to preview. And here's the preview. I have these 5 days selected. And these are the dates that they're going to be scheduled for, as well as the times. So this is kind of where those lesson plan items are now being created as assignments. Basically, the scheduler is taking the lesson plan item, which is, like I said, kind of like a template, and it's creating an assignment out of that template, and it's putting it at the specific times that we requested. So with all 5 of those selected, I'll choose Accept Selected Items. And so now, if I go back to my agenda, and we go to next week, there you go. These were those ancient history lessons that we created earlier, but now here are the Reading 1 assignments that we just scheduled, Monday through Friday. You'll notice each one of them is a little bit different because it's the first 5 days in that lesson plan. And here they are as assignments now scheduled for Campbell for next week. So again, kind of thinking about workflow, a lot of folks might create lesson plans, maybe for all their courses or maybe just a few. And at the beginning of the week, maybe Sunday night, we'll go in to their lesson plans and schedule their week ahead. And if you created those lesson plans ahead of time, it's pretty easy. You don't have to enter in all the specific information. You just select the items that you want and then schedule them for the week, and you're good to go. So that's kind of how you would do basic scheduling of lesson plans. What I want to show you is a little bit more advanced, and it involves going to the lesson plans and presets page. This is kind of what I call more of our advanced scheduler. And it's more advanced because what it does, it allows you to schedule more than one lesson plan at a time. And you can also use preset times for when you want those items to occur. So I'll show you how this all works. Basically, I've pulled up Campbell here on the lesson plans and presets page. And these are all of her active lesson plans that she's using in this scheduler. I'm going to click on Edit. And what I want to do, once it loads up here, is select that Reading 1 lesson plan. So here it is. I'm going to check that box. Okay, and so now I'm going to go to the preset menu. And the preset looks a lot like our calendar, except there's no specific dates. It just says Sunday through Saturday. And what these presets are, these are preset blocks of time when I want the scheduler to basically schedule that subject and course. So you'll notice I have preset times for Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10, Monday through Friday, spelling from 10 to 11, Monday through Friday, and so on. I'm going to go ahead and create a new preset for Reading 1. And it'll be from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Go ahead and save that. And there you go. Now I have a preset Monday through Friday for Reading 1. Okay. So now I'm going to go to the scheduler. And this is, again, this is our advanced scheduler. And what it'll do is it'll allow me to select more than one lesson plan and schedule them all at once. So here we go. I'm going to select all of these lesson plans. There are 7 of them. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to day and date. And now this day and date field looks a lot like the other ones that we looked at. But one thing I'm going to change here is I'm going to change this to preset. So instead of scheduling it every day or like on a weekly basis, I'm going to choose preset. And then I'm going to choose a start date. So I'm going to choose the week after next week, starting the 29th. And I will continue until the 2nd. So I'm basically going to schedule that whole week, Monday through Friday. Again, there's 7 lesson plans, and I'm scheduling it for an entire week. So I'll continue to preview. And here we go. So now I have 49 items to preview here. And you'll notice that they're all from different lesson plans for different courses, all very specific information. And they're happening at very specific times. So here's Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10. As you remember, I had that as the preset. Spelling from 10 to 11. If I scroll down to reading, this is happening from 3 to 4 on Monday. And if I go to Tuesday, you'll notice reading is happening again from 3 to 4 on Tuesday. So what I did is I took 7 lesson plans, I took 5 days, and it created 49 items for me. So I'm going to select all of these and then choose Accept. So it's going to create each one of these assignments for me now for that week starting August 29th. And this is really where you start to see the power of lesson plans, because as a lot of folks do, they might create lesson plans for all of their courses and then also create preset times and then just schedule their whole week all at once. So now if I go to calendar and I skip to the week after this one, there you go. There's all 49 assignments at their very specific time, ready to go for Campbell. And I did that relatively quickly. So, when you think about workflow, going in on a Sunday night, and if you have all of your lesson plans already created and you have presets in there, you could generate the entire week with just a few clicks. So that's how you can use presets and the scheduler, the advanced scheduler, to really kind of speed things up. Okay, so let's jump into reports real briefly. Again, reports can be created as PDF files that you can save, print, or send off. And the daily task list, this is a great report to use kind of on a day-to-day basis. Transcripts and report cards, those can be generated as long as you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course. So as you can imagine, a course won't show up on a transcript unless there's at least one grade recorded for it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the daily task list. So right here in the reports section of the menu, I can click on daily task list. And there's a bunch of settings here. These all basically allow me to turn on or off different things that I want on the report. But I'm going to go ahead and just change the date range to that week that we just scheduled for Campbell, Monday through Friday. And I will go ahead and generate the report and now pick it up, which means download it. And here it is. So this is the report that I could print out and see what Campbell has to do every day of the week for that week. So these are those 49 assignments really at their very specific time. And this report is 4 pages that I could print out, put it on a bulletin board, kind of check things off as we go, and they can certainly be helpful in aiding our week in our homeschool. Okay, so that's the daily task list. Transcripts and report cards, we won't go into too much detail tonight. We certainly will do probably another webinar when it gets kind of close to mid-year and then at the end of the year to talk specifically about transcripts and report cards. But just know that they can only be generated, or courses will only show up on them if you have at least one completed and graded assignment in a course. Okay, so just to recap a little bit on workflows, and we talked about these kind of as we went, but workflows, you can certainly just create and complete single assignments on a daily basis, right? So like we showed you, creating one assignment or, creating one day's worth of assignments the night before, the day of, or if you're more of an unschooler or just want to use Homeschool Tracker as more of a record-keeping tool instead of a planning tool, at the end of every day or the end of every week, go into Homeschool Tracker and just log everything that you did. You could even do this in conjunction with like a paper planner. If you're using a binder or a paper planner of some kind, that's totally fine. The downside of just using a paper planner is that, it's hard to generate a transcript from a paper planner, right? You'd have to go through and add everything up. With this, you can still take that paper planner and then just at the end of the week, just log everything in there that's in your paper planner into Homeschool Tracker so that it's there, it's saved, and it's secure, and that then you have the ability to generate all those reports that we showed you. You can also create multiple assignments, obviously, on a weekly basis and do it that way. And then, of course, the more advanced ways, you can create lesson plans and schedule all of your students, usually 1 week or 2 weeks at a time is what we would recommend. Okay, so let's jump into a little bit of Q&A. I know a few questions were coming in kind of as we were going along. Paula asked, what if you wanted to use percentages instead of points? I'm assuming that's referring to grading. And that's not a problem at all. The way that we have it set up is we use points and it calculates a percentage. But if you want to just think about it on a percentage basis, then what I would recommend is just, let me just pull one of these up in here, is just make these out of 100, right? So the points possible would always be out of 100. And then the earned would be the percentage that they're earning, right? So 76% would be 76 out of 100. And there it is, it's calculated. The only downside of this is and it may or may not matter to you, but if points themselves are important to your grading overall. And what I mean by that is, like, if you are just thinking about things on a percentage basis instead of like on a points basis, then how do you know if that a test might be worth more than a regular lesson, right? So like if a test is worth 100 points and a lesson is only worth 10 points, then the test is worth 10 times the amount of the lesson. But if you're just thinking about things on a percentage basis, then if you got 100% on the test and you got 100% on the lesson, then you basically just have 200%, and that doesn't really mean that they're at all different. So hopefully that makes sense. It just depends on how you're grading things, how you're thinking about grades, and how they ultimately add up to the final grade for your class or for your student. But that's certainly how I would do it if I was just thinking about percentages. I would just make things out of 100 or out of 10 if you wanted to do it that way, and just make things worth 9 out of 10 for 90%, etc. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Paula. Let's see. Caroline asked a few questions here. So let's see. She says, my daughter is in ACE, PACES for English, and business math. I need her completing at least 5 to 6 pages per day. How would I do that? Would I just go to PLC and start at, say, page 1 and increment by 5 pages? Let's see. So she needs to complete 5 to 6 pages per day. Well, you have a range there, 5 to 6. So, what you could do is just don't put anything in there, right? And if she knows, and in the directions field, you could say read at least 5 or 6 pages per day. And then when it's complete, then you could put in actually what she read. I'm not sure if that answers your question. If you want to put in specific pages, like in the PLC, then you would have to be very specific, right? Read pages 1 through 5, read pages 5 through 10, read pages 10 through 15, that sort of thing. If you don't want to get that specific, and it sounds like maybe you don't need to, then I would just put in the directions, read 5 to 6 pages per day, and then create that assignment every day. And then if you wanted to keep track of where she was at along the way, then you could just add that after it was completed, either in the notes field or in the PLC field, however you wanted to do it. Hopefully that answers your question, Caroline. She also asked, is this where you would print? I'm not sure what that was in reference to. So if you could add more clarity on that, that would be helpful. So, okay, it says it has to be like 6 pages per day. Is there a way to schedule that? It has to be 6 pages per day. Okay, so let's think about this then. So let's say I'll just go ahead and create multiple assignments, and we'll just use Ancient History 1 as the example, and we will call this, she has to read, so let's see, reading as the activity, let's say, and then we'll pick the resource. Let's say this is the resource, and we will continue to day and date, and we'll do this every day. And so for PLC, you could do, let's see, pages 1 through, I'm just trying to think here. Well, what you would do is you need to figure out the total number of pages, right? So if there are 200 pages in the book, then you need to say start with 1 and end with 200 and increment by 6, right? Because if you want to read 6 pages per day, then that's how I would do it. And then if I continue to the preview, let's just see if this works, right? Basically now, for the first one, it's saying pages 1 through 6, then it's saying pages 7 through 12, then 13 through 18, and so on and so forth, up until page 200, right? So I'm hoping that answers your question. That's how I would set up the auto increment for PLC to basically assign 6 pages per day, is I would increment by 6, but I would need to know the start page and then the end page in order to do that. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay, let's see. So Paul is asking, is it possible to generate a math lesson for the whole year and then go back and add in the tests? For example, chapter 1 test is after lesson 3. Okay, so this is a great question, Paula. Looks like you asked a different one as well. So this question where you're asking, is it possible to generate a math lesson for the whole year and then go back in and add the tests? You absolutely can. And let me just show you kind of how to do that. So with our sample lesson plan that we created, we added this test in, right, on day 11. If I had wanted to add it in on day 5 and then move everything down, I certainly could do that. It's kind of a pain though, right? Because what I could do is I could say, well, let me just edit this one. I'll say, make this day 5. And so what I end up having to do is now I need to kind of renumber these, right? So if I select the ones that I want to renumber and choose action, change day number, I can change all items in the lesson plan starting with day number. I want to change the 6 items here and then continue to options. And I want to start them with day 6 and increment by 1. This will make sense here in a second. So basically, now this 5 becomes a 6, this 6 becomes a 7, and so on. I'm showing you this to show you how kind of difficult it can be because ideally you wouldn't do it this way, right? So now what I did is I basically made that test on day 5 and then I pushed everything else after it. So it certainly can be done, but as you can see, it's kind of a little weird in the way to do it. What I would absolutely recommend though is that you create the tests first and then it changes everything. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. Let me just delete all these. So what I like to teach when it comes to lesson plans is I like to create the tentpole events first. And what I mean by tentpole, that can be in anything like a test, a midterm, a final exam, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and just create a single thing here. And I'm going to call this midterm. And I know that the midterm, and this is where you'll just have to know it. And you know it by looking at your calendar, right? Let's say you know that your midterm happens after 50 lessons or something like that. So let's put the midterm on day 51, and it's worth 100 points. Now, I want to also create the final exam. And let's call this the final. And let's say that happens on day 180. That's also worth 100 points. Okay. And then let's say I want to add in like quizzes. So I'll just do multiple. And we'll do ancient history 1, and we'll call these quiz. And those are worth 25. Let's make them worth 20 points. We'll continue to day numbers, and I want every 10 days we have a quiz. Okay, so we'll start on day 10 and we'll increment by 10. And let's say we'll just do 20 copies. That's probably more than enough, and we'll continue to preview. Okay, so what we can do now is get like a preview of what we're looking at. I can choose which ones I want. So let's do these. I'm not going to do one on day 50 since we have the midterm right there. Then we'll do these quizzes. And then I'm not going to do one after the final, obviously. So I'll go ahead and accept those. Okay, so now we're kind of building our lesson plan. And we're building it from the tentpole events. So we started again with the midterm, and then we went to the final, and then we added in these quizzes. So I have days, on every 10 days I have a quiz. On day 51, I've got a midterm. On day 180, a final. And now we can create all the lessons that go in between. And so what we'll do here is we'll choose add multiple. And we'll call these lesson. And these are each like worth 5 points, let's say. And we'll continue to day numbers. Now, this is where like the power happens, right? So we'll start on day 1 and we'll increment by 1. But we're going to check this box. Skip over day numbers that are already in use. And then we'll continue to PLC. And we'll do a 1-part increment. We'll just call it lesson 1, end with 180, and we'll continue to preview. And so now it's creating lessons all along the way. And it's going all the way down. And, we created way too many, but that's okay. I'll just select all of them and choose accept. Because what you'll see is that it's skipped over, because we checked that box, it skipped over our quizzes and it skipped over our tests. So that now we've got days 1 through 9, lessons 1 through 9, then we have a quiz. Then we've got lessons 10 through 18, then we have a quiz. Then lessons 19 through 27, then a quiz. So you can see it actually works better if you work in reverse, right? Where you start with the quizzes and the tests, kind of the tentpole events, and then you can fill in the gaps with lessons. And obviously this isn't perfect yet, right? Like I have these extra lessons at the end, but I can just, I can select these pretty easily and then just delete them because I don't need those. Right. And if I wanted to be more specific about what this quiz was about, I could just open it and, just describe it a little bit better, add notes or that sort of thing. So, in just a few minutes here, we created a 180-day lesson plan that has quizzes and tests at very specific intervals. And so that's how I would recommend going about it. So hopefully, Paula, that answers your question. Okay. So Caroline, you asked a question. Can the daily task list have a whole week's worth of work on it or just 1 day's? It can have as many days as you want. So that's what the one that we created was the whole week's worth, right? This is for 8/29 through 9/2. And so here is Mondays, and then it flows right into Tuesdays and then Wednesday. So it can go for as long as you want it to. And that's all determined if I go to daily task list, just by this date range here. So I had chosen that entire week. You could choose 1 day or multiple days if you like. Okay, Paula asked, can the shared lesson plans be altered? They can be once they're imported into your account. You can't edit the shared lesson plan in the shared lesson plan library itself. So once you submit it, it's kind of there and it's done. If you submitted one and say you made a mistake on it or you wanted it deleted for some reason, just send us an email and we can do it on our end. But they can be altered. Probably what I think the heart of your question is, can they be altered once they're imported? Absolutely. So here is the that reading 1 plan that we imported, and I could go in here, I could change it. I could do anything I want to this plan once it's in my account. I could add to it. One thing you could do, like if you found a lesson plan in the library that you altered to either make better or different for whatever reason, and if that is of value to others, you think, go ahead and submit that one, right, as a new version of the one that you imported. That would certainly be helpful to the rest of the community. So, okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Caroline's asking, do you schedule chores just like you do assignments for your students? Yeah, you absolutely can. So the chores are going to happen in the agenda, either the calendar view or the list view. So let's say I want to schedule some chores for this week. I just go to add chore. And the scheduler looks a lot like, adding multiple assignments, that sort of thing. I pick the chore name. And again, this comes off of the chore list. And I'm thinking, I don't have any chores in this account, but I can just create one here in the field. So I would put in like clean room. And let's say I want them to clean the room every evening, like before bed or something, right? I could say at 8 o'clock every night, I want you to clean your room. We'll just do it from 8 to 8:15. And then continue day and date. And then again, this is the scheduling part, right? So I could have it be every day. Let's just do it for this week, just so we can see it. Oops. And I want it to happen every day. So I'll continue to preview, and there you go. Select all of those and accept. And so now, I need to show the full day. If I scroll down to 8 p.m., Campbell Clean Room, every day this week. So you can schedule those for as far out as you like, obviously. Now, the thing about chores, you can also mark chores complete or incomplete. And so it's kind of like an assignment, but it's not, right? Because it's not part of a subject or course or anything like that. It's just an activity that needs to get done. You could set the table, that sort of thing. And then you can run a report to show how many times they did it or didn't do it, if that's more interesting to you. All right. So any other questions? Doesn't look like it. Again, we will send a recording of this to each one of you. And the other thing that we will do, and this is, we usually surprise folks with this at the end, because you joined us here live tonight, and I know you took an hour and 12 minutes out of your Wednesday evening to be with us, we would love to give you a free month of Homeschool Tracker. Just to say thank you, because I think folks that show up to these things are really dedicated, right? Obviously, to learn how to do this, how to be more successful in their homeschool. And so we want to just kind of reward you with a free month of Homeschool Tracker. So if you are an existing customer, which I assume most of you are, what we'll do is we'll pull a report of everybody that was on tonight, and we'll go in and extend your account a full month, totally on us, just as a thank you. If you're not a current customer, and we pull up the report and you're not in the system, then we'll send you a code that you can use to get a free month on us. So thank you guys so much. Caroline says, wow, thank you so much. Susanna says, thanks for the gift. Hey, you got it. No problem. We are happy to help. Caroline, yours is on auto pay. Yeah, that's not a problem. What it does is we basically change your renewal date from, let's say it's tomorrow. We make it for a month from tomorrow. So you won't get automatically charged tomorrow. You'll get charged a month from tomorrow. And so that's where that free month comes from. So no worries at all. And of course, if you have any questions on anything, billing related or program related, just shoot us an email, support@homeschooltracker.com. And, we're happy to help. That's what we're here for. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you have a great night, and we will hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Oh, Caroline, sorry. I was just about to end the meeting. I saw your comment there. You've already recommended this to a number of homeschooling parents. Totally appreciate that. One thing I would mention, and we just rolled this out literally yesterday, is a referral program. So we used to have one a long, long time ago, and it was always kind of not always working 100%. So we just redid it with a new partner. And if you go to Homeschool Track, just go to our website. See, now I can't do things. Homeschooltracker.com. And if you go to the bottom, way bottom, right here, affiliates, you will go to our affiliate sign-up page, which is homeschooltracker.refersion.com, but just go find the link. And basically you can sign up, and it'll give you a very special link that you can share with your friends and family or your co-op or anybody really. You can put it on Facebook. And what happens is if people sign up for Homeschool Tracker through your link, you will get paid 10% of their subscription fee, recurring in perpetuity, basically, as they are subscribers. So let's say if they sign up for $8 a month, you will get 80 cents a month every month that they are a customer, right? Now, 80 cents a month obviously doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if you refer 10 people at that $8 a month plan, you'll get $8 a month as long as those 10 people are subscribers, right? So it could certainly add up, especially if you're part of a group or something. Send it to your whole co-op, right? And get them to sign up. And then you can basically get Homeschool Tracker for free because if you get 10 people to sign up, it's basically for free now. Or it could pay your cell phone bill or something if you get enough people. But that's it's a great way for us to say thank you to our current customers that want to refer us. And it's also obviously a great way for us to kind of spread the word about Homeschool Tracker and what it can do for you. So go to our affiliate site here to sign up, and then you will get that special link that you can share with your friends and family or your co-op or your group, whatever. You put it on Facebook. If you have a blog, put it on there, whatever you like. And it'll keep track of everybody that gets signed up through that link, and you'll get paid out as long as they're a subscriber. So hopefully that's helpful. And okay, that's it. Thank you so much, and hope that you guys have a great night. Thanks.